어렸을 때부터 어머니가 미술학원을 운영을 하셨어요. 그래서 거기 가서 놀고 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 미술을 접하게 됐고, 저는 그리고 만드는 것 중에 만드는 게 더 재밌었어요. 그래서 이제 도요카 입학해서 다양한 재료들을 경험을 해봤지만 그 중에서도 물레성형 기법에 굉장히 매료가 됐고, 이 기법을 평생 하면서 하면 행복하겠다는 생각이 들어서 도자기를 계속 하게 되었습니다. 작업하시는 분들은 다들 공감을 하시겠지만 사실 정답이 없잖아요. 그래서 항상 불안하고 제가 제대로 된 길을 가고 있는지에 대한 이런 마음이 엄청 큰데, 프란치라는 좀 어떻게 보면 저한테는 되게 큰 상이었거든요. 제가 잘하고 있다고 도닥여주고 제대로 길을 가고 있다고 확신을 주는 것 같아서 저한테는 되게 의미 있는, 지금까지 작업을 할 수 있는 원동력이기도 했고요. 저는 옛날에 기 형태들을 많이 참고하는 편인 것 같고요. 엄청나게 섬세한 기법들을 통해서 장식이 되어 있거든요. 저는 그런 장식들을 일부분씩 뜯어와서 그걸 제만의 방식대로 입체화시킵니다. 원래는 기라는 형태 자체가 실제로 사용하기 위해서 만들어졌잖아요. 그 공간을 저는 어떻게 하면 더 흥미롭게 보여줄 수 있을까? 그래서 제가 집중했던 부분이 창인데요. 건축에서도 창을 내부 외부를 잇는 통로, 매개체라고 많이들 이야기를 하잖아요. 저는 그 부분에서 영감을 받아서 그 창의 의미를 형태에 접목시키게 되었습니다. 그래서 요즘에는 이제 설치 작업도 많이 하는 것 같아요. 보통은 컵 같은 경우는 최종 완성까지 한 3주에서 4주 정도 소요가 되고요. 큰 작업 같은 경우는 한 3달까지도 걸리는 작업들도 있는 것 같아요. 저 같은 경우는 창같이 복잡한 패턴들을 함께 구성을 하다 보니까 정말 많이 갈라져요. 그래서 재벌 가마에 들어가 있을 때가 가장 긴장되는 순간인 것 같습니다. 사실 공간이라는 것이 볼 수도 없고 만질 수도 없는 어떠한 무형의 어떤 것이잖아요. 그거를 이제 빛이나 그림자나 무형의 어떤 요소들을 활용해서 같이 공감할 수 있는 작업을 하고 싶습니다.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 APEC은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 APEC 2025로 이어집니다.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. With the South Korean delegation in Washington for trade talks, officials from both sides met at the White House to discuss cooperation in the shipbuilding industry. Regarding the U.S. Treasury Secretary's recent comments that the two sides are close to finalizing their negotiations, the Korean delegation says it's a positive sign. Cambodia is reportedly planning to deport 59 South Koreans today who are involved in job scam cases. And the Cambodian Prime Minister met with the Korean delegation and expressed deep regret over the recent torture and death of a college student who was kidnapped and forced to work in a scam center in Cambodia. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he will meet with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Hungary for more talks on the Ukraine war. Although the exact date is unknown, Trump said the meeting will take place within 2 weeks or so. We begin this morning in the United States, where top South Korean officials held talks with a senior White House official over shipbuilding cooperation, a key part of Seoul's $350 billion trade-related investment commitment. Our Moon Ji-young starts us off.
Amid ongoing efforts by Seoul and Washington to narrow differences over South Korea's tariff-related U.S. investment package, Presidential Chief of Staff for Policy Kim Yong-bum and Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan met with Russell Vaught, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, on Thursday. While the OMB is not directly involved in tariff negotiations, the South Korean delegation expects that emphasizing Korea-U.S. shipbuilding cooperation will positively influence efforts to reconcile differences regarding the $350 billion investment package.
The OMB is a very crucial entity for the shipbuilding cooperation project. We are visiting the office as we want to listen to what it has to say and share each other's views on shipbuilding industrial cooperation between our country and the U.S.
Earlier, Kim said that both nations are negotiating in the most earnest and constructive atmosphere. Regarding U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's expectation of results within 10 days, the official took it as a positive sign.
When the U.S. expects a result within 10 days, that apparently represents its interim assessment of the negotiations with us, and I read it as a sign that is not bad.
Kim also emphasized the critical importance of the Korea-U.S. summit scheduled for the end of this month, held on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju. Reinforcing the delegation's efforts, Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul, who is in Washington for the IMF General Assembly, met with Bessent and said he fully understood that Korea finds it difficult to accept the U.S.'s demand for an upfront investment of $350 billion. He underscored the need to examine the effects of such investment schemes and expressed concerns that paying the full amount upfront would undoubtedly pose a problem for Korea's foreign exchange stability. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
And the United States has criticized China's targeting of South Korean shipbuilder Hanwha Ocean, calling it an irresponsible attempt to undermine shipbuilding cooperation between Seoul and Washington. A State Department spokesperson said on Thursday local time that China's actions only reaffirm the importance of strengthening U.S. economic cooperation with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region. The comments come just days after Beijing imposed sanctions on 5 U.S.-linked subsidiaries of the Korean firm, a key player in the Make American Shipbuilding Great Again project, which is part of Seoul's efforts to help the United States rebuild its shipbuilding industry. So we thought the trade war between the United States and China was over, but it has reignited with Trump threatening to impose an additional 100% tariffs and China tightening export controls on rare earth minerals. For more on tensions between the world's 2 largest economies, we're joined today by Jeff Moon, president of China Moon Strategies and former assistant U.S. trade representative for China. Mr. Moon, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So, as someone who served as the assistant U.S. trade representative for China affairs during the Obama administration, how do you assess the current situation and how long do you think this tension might last?
In recent months, the U.S. and China have been trying to build trust and establish a stable environment for resolving their trade differences. Top negotiators met in Geneva in May, and they agreed that the U.S. would pause tariffs if China agreed to continue supplying rare earths. Well, since then, however, both sides have accused each other of taking aggressive steps that have undermined that fragile consensus. For example, Beijing believes that Washington's revised entity list policy was aggressive, while the U.S. makes the same claims about China's new rare earths licensing policy. Hostile rhetoric in recent days has even included personal attacks, suggesting that both sides are frustrated and are reluctant to compromise. Frankly, all of this reminds me of sort of a tense basketball game where both sides are fighting at the net to get the ball and score. Sometimes the competition gets too rough and referees need to remind the players to stop pushing and shoving each other so the game can go forward for the benefit of everyone. I'm optimistic that in the end, negotiators will find a way for Trump and Xi to meet in South Korea, and they will agree to a mini deal that resolves some bilateral trade issues while leaving the toughest problems like subsidies and overcapacity unaddressed.
I see. And Washington is trying to tone down tensions with Beijing. And Trump said the United States wants to help China, not hurt it. And the Treasury Secretary also suggested that the China tariff truce could be extended. So how is the United States approaching talks with China at this stage?
The U.S. is trying to push back on China's latest rare earth export controls, which the U.S. thinks really poses a serious threat to the global electronic supply chain, while signaling a willingness to move forward on the broader bilateral trade agenda. Meanwhile, the elements of a potential mini deal are clear. China wants lower U.S. tariffs, reduced export controls, and investment opportunities in the U.S. The U.S. is seeking fentanyl cooperation, rare earths, and sales opportunities. So the question is really whether and how negotiators can find a middle ground. The negotiations aren't transparent, so the current state of play in the short term isn't clear. But as I said before, I think it's more likely than not that the U.S. and China will reach some sort of limited deal at Seoul. But the problem is that there's increasing downward pressure on the bilateral relationship at this point. And the flurry of emotional announcements and statements over the past week reminds us that there's still a lot that could go wrong between now and the APEC meeting.
Right, and we're now just about 2 weeks away from the APEC meeting that you just mentioned here in South Korea, where President Donald Trump could meet with President Xi Jinping. And Trump is also scheduled to meet South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung. What do you think Trump hopes to achieve from his visit to South Korea?
Well, I would distinguish between what Trump personally hopes to achieve at APEC and the broader U.S. national interests at APEC. I think that Trump's personal priorities include a potential meeting with Xi Jinping, where he hopes to announce a mini deal that resolves some of the issues out there. He also wants to hold bilateral trade meetings with President Lee and other world leaders to make progress on other bilateral trade agreements as well. Those goals are separate and distinct from the broader diplomatic reasons why the U.S. participates in APEC. What's unique about APEC is that it is a consensus-led regional forum that meets year-round and is designed to promote broadly shared goals. So APEC promotes friendly relations between regional leaders and is an excellent venue for sharing best practices among the private and public sector stakeholders that are there. I participated in APEC both as a U.S. official and as a businessman and valued the unique interaction between government and private sector stakeholders. That interaction is designed to increase cooperation, but not tackle the most controversial issues. So heads of state attend APEC plenary meetings to lend prestige to the regional consensus reflected in APEC's broader agenda. And then they hold other meetings on the margins to address ongoing issues that may or may not be related to APEC's multilateral activities.
Right, and tensions between Washington and Beijing are directly affecting Korean companies now. And China imposed sanctions on Hanwha Ocean for allegedly cooperating with the United States on port fees. What does this signal, and how do you think the South Korean government should respond?
Well, as you know, South Korea's leading security partner is the U.S., but its largest trading partner is China. So Seoul's near-term challenge with regard to China is that China wants to dominate the Asia region. It wants to disrupt the U.S.-South Korea partnership. It wants to punish South Korean firms to discourage cooperation with Washington. Frankly, South Korea has seen this behavior before. China reacted to South Korea's 2016 announcement of plans to host American THAAD missiles with economic coercion of various forms. Similarly, China is now signaling its general intention to lash out at countries and firms that are cooperating with the U.S. during the current trade war with China. China's taking these measures not from a position of strength, because not only is economic coercion a key element of its trade playbook, but China's economy is faltering under the weight of a real estate crisis that is pulling down a third of its economy. China has reacted to this crisis by doubling down on high-end manufacturing, which is causing massive overcapacity and a need to dump products in overseas markets like the U.S. and South Korea. So I believe South Korea has done an admirable job in navigating these challenges, both in the past and now, and I think Seoul will continue to do so. But global trade tensions are increasing, and there will be dips and turns in the road ahead that all nations will find challenging in the years ahead.
Right, we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, Mr. Moon, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cambodia is reportedly set to deport 59 South Koreans involved in job scam cases today. Meanwhile, the Cambodian Prime Minister met with the South Korean delegation and expressed deep regret over the recent death of a South Korean national in an illegal online job scam. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Cambodia is preparing to deport 59 South Korean nationals involved in job scam cases. According to a report by AFP, Cambodia's national police announced that the deportation will take place on Friday in cooperation with the Korean embassy in Phnom Penh. The individuals were either rescued from cyber scam centers or detained for related crimes. The move comes as Seoul has dispatched a joint government response team to Cambodia to tackle the surge in job scams that have led to the abduction and confinement of Korean nationals. So far, about 80 South Koreans are missing or unaccounted for, while more than 60 have been confined in the country in connection with such schemes. On Thursday, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet met with the South Korean delegation and expressed deep regret over the recent torture and death of a South Korean national in an illegal online job scam. He pledged to intensify efforts to protect South Koreans and to arrest suspects still at large. Hun, who heads Cambodia's Commission for Combating Online Scams, promised a closer cooperation with Seoul to fight these crimes. Leading the South Korean response team is Second Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jin-ah, who voiced strong concerns over the situation and called for active measures to protect Korean citizens.
I requested active measures and cooperation to protect our citizens and eradicate these crimes in Cambodia.
She also highlighted the importance of Korea-Cambodia Joint Scam Response Task Force, which includes key agencies like the Korean National Police Agency, to work jointly with Cambodian authorities to root out these criminal networks. The coordinated efforts mark a significant step by both governments to address the widening job scam crisis affecting South Korean nationals in Cambodia. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Japan, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has made an offering to Yasukuni Shrine, where Class A war criminals from the Second World War are enshrined. According to Kyodo News on Friday, Ishiba made an offering called Masakaki to mark the start of the Autumn Grand Festival. Since taking office, he has been making offerings or monetary donations instead of visiting the shrine in person. The right-wing Liberal Democratic Party president, Sanae Takaichi, who is being mentioned as Ishiba's successor, is said to have decided to hold off on a visit to the shrine during the festival period, seemingly to avoid conflict with neighboring countries. On the economic front, South Korea added 312,000 jobs in September, marking the largest on-year growth in 19 months. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Friday, the number of employed people stood at 29.15 million last month. Notably, employment in service industries such as wholesale, retail, and accommodation and food services showed a distinct improvement, which the government attributes partly to livelihood recovery consumption coupons that began in July. However, employment in the manufacturing and construction sectors continued to decline, signaling persistent weakness in key industries. And shifting gears to sports, South Korean football star Kang-in has been named the Asian Football Confederation International Player of the Year. The announcement was made at the AFC Awards in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on Thursday. The honor recognizes the best Asian player competing outside of Asia. He becomes the third Korean player to receive the prestigious award, following Son Heung-min of Los Angeles FC and Kim Min-jae of Bayern Munich. He played 49 matches in the 2024-2025 season and scored 7 goals. On the cultural front, we take a look at a transformation of concert halls and museums that are becoming more interactive. Special lectures are now being held where audiences can listen to music of masters of classical music accompanied by commentary from experts in the field, or sessions where the museum director explains the artwork before or after viewing the exhibition. Our Yoon-jin has more.
A scene from the film Before Sunrise is projected on a large screen, along with the classical music featured in the movie's ending credits. In a concert hall typically reserved for orchestras and vocalists, a former radio producer takes the stage to explain the life and music of Baroque master Johann Sebastian Bach.
I've worked in classical radio broadcasting for over 30 years. Throughout my career, I've always thought about how to make classical music more accessible and enjoyable to more people.
On a weekday afternoon, the venue's lobby is bustling with middle-aged and older attendees who've given up their lunch breaks to attend this free lecture that they've registered for in advance. The lecture sessions that blend musical insights with references to films and famous personalities associated with classical music are fully booked.
I've been attending the lectures from the first session. I'm really interested in classical music. I've been to concerts before, but this is my first time studying and learning about it through a lecture like this.
3 lectures remain through November, focusing on the music of Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. Museum director Yoo Hong-jun, well known for his book My Exploration of Cultural Heritage, uses his signature lecture style to break down the value and cultural spirit of early Joseon Dynasty art. These lectures are connected to ongoing exhibitions at the National Museum of Korea, including topics like white porcelain, calligraphy, paintings, and Buddhist sculptures. The layered multimedia presentations, complete with presentation slides and historical background, attracted an eager audience who managed to secure seats despite fierce competition during online reservations. The venue that seats hundreds was packed.
When I heard that director Yoo Hong-jun would be giving a lecture, I waited a long time for this date. It was really hard to get a spot through online registration. After the lecture, I'm planning to see the exhibition New Nation, New Art.
For those who haven't seen the exhibition, the lecture serves as a preview. For those who have, it becomes a review.
Viewing ancient art can be difficult if you're not an expert, but after attending a lecture, you can better understand why early Joseon art is meaningful, beautiful, and worth preserving.
As concert halls filled with classical music and museums housing cultural treasures become infused with in-depth knowledge, they are evolving into a cultural space with a new purpose, a venue for artistic learning and lectures. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have agreed to hold a face-to-face meeting in Budapest after a 2.5-hour phone call on Thursday, described by both sides as very productive. The planned summit will be their first in-person meeting since August and signals a renewed diplomatic effort between Washington and Moscow. Trump said Secretary of State Marco Rubio will head a team of senior advisors meeting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov next week to prepare the agenda. Putin's aides called the exchange extremely frank and trustful, while Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban hailed the planned meeting as great news for peace. The call between Trump and Putin came just before Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky arrived in Washington for talks on air defense and long-range missiles. In the U.S., former National Security Advisor John Bolton was indicted on Thursday on 18 counts for keeping top-secret records at home and sharing classified notes with family members. Prosecutors say Iranian-linked hackers breached Bolton's email in 2021, exposing sensitive information that he had shared. They allege that he had failed to tell the FBI that classified information had been compromised. The charges follow FBI searches of his Maryland home and Washington office for records retained from his time in government. Court documents say Bolton shared more than 1,000 pages of daily notes and intelligence on foreign adversaries, including missile launch plans and covert operations. Attorney General Pam Bondi said no one is above the law and that abuse of power endangering national security will be punished. Bolton's lawyer called the case baseless, arguing that many officials like Bolton have kept personal diaries and says Bolton did not unlawfully share or store classified information. In Peru, at least one person was killed and dozens of police officers injured on Wednesday night as thousands of protesters clashed with security forces outside Congress in Lima. The protesters are demanding action on corruption and rising crime. Police fired tear gas as demonstrators chanted "Everyone must go" and tried to tear down metal barriers. Officials say 32-year-old Eduardo Manrio Ures died of a gunshot wound. A police officer accused of firing the gunshot has been suspended. The government says 89 police officers and 22 civilians were injured in the protest, with 11 arrests. The protests come less than a week after former President Dina Boluarte was impeached. Her replacement, President Jose Herri, expressed regret, promising an objective investigation and blaming violence on delinquents who infiltrated a peaceful protest. Uruguay has become one of the first countries in Latin America to legalize euthanasia after senators in Montevideo on Wednesday passed the dignified death bill by 20 votes to 11. The new law allows mentally sound adults in the terminal stage of an irreversible illness to request euthanasia carried out by a healthcare professional. Supporters say the measure reflects Uruguay's long tradition of progressive laws, which includes same-sex marriage, abortion, and legalization of marijuana. Senator Patricia Kramer said public opinion demanded the change, with polls showing 62% support nationwide.
We had pleasant autumn weather in the capital area yesterday, and we're wrapping up the week with a sunny morning. But again, more clouds will be moving in before the day ends with rain. And that rain will spread nationwide overnight and continue through tomorrow, with 10 to 50 millimeters expected. But the East Coast regions will see rain stick around through Sunday morning. Gray skies have kept the temperatures milder than usual. However, once that whole rain system moves out, we're expecting a big chill to arrive with the capital, waking up to a low of just 5 degrees Celsius on Monday. But this afternoon, temperatures will warm up nicely, reaching up to 24 degrees in both Seoul and Daegu, Gwangju topping out at 25 degrees. When that early winter-like morning arrives next Monday, we could even see the season's first snow falling in the mountain areas of Gangwon-do, with the season's first frost in inland areas. Speaking of which, which the east of Gangwon-do could see more wet weather through early next week.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view, as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new style, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, October 17th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Haeyoung.
Hello, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Grace is with us.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we've already, or finally, depending on how you look at it, made it to the end of the work week. So after a long stretch of meetings, deadlines, and endless to-do lists, we can finally take a breather. And you know what that means? The perfect weekend for shopping, relaxing, maybe even a little indulgence is just around the corner. And as we've also arrived at the cusp of a new season, it's the perfect time to refresh our wardrobes and treat yourselves a bit. So tell me, have you both had your eye on anything you wanted to buy recently? Taeyoung, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. The weather's been so unpredictable these days.
Right.
It felt like summer just a few days ago, and the autumn has just arrived overnight. And with the season changing, moms felt that pressure to reorganize kids' clothes. And kids grow so fast that last year's clothes might not even fit this year. So what do? We shop. And most of the time, I buy online because I'm at work during the day, though sometimes I go to stores. And when I say shopping, I mean for my kids, not myself. And I have a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. And honestly, most of my spending goes to them. For Chuseok, for example, I bought them a few new fall outfits and even a cute pairs of sneakers for my little girl whose feet have grown. And me, I actually needed another sneakers too, but I didn't buy any. So yeah, it's really all about the kids.
I think that's very realistic. So there's something a lot of parents can probably relate to once kids come along. Spending parties completely change. So what about soon-to-be parents? I imagine shopping habits look a bit different when you're getting ready for a baby.
Yes, well, I happen to be one of those soon-to-be parents, and I'm about 4 months, thank you, into my pregnancy. And I can already sense that my priorities are changing, as I would normally be eye shopping for myself, but now I'm constantly thinking about what I need to buy for my future baby. And I'm guessing that this will continue to be the case, like Seoung said, and it'll eventually be all about the child as time goes by. Lately, I've been researching on what a newborn would need, from clothing to bottle sanitizers to laundry detergent, and the list gets longer by the day.
Well, that's so exciting. I can imagine you must be doing tons of research on what's best for your baby, and that shift in spending habits isn't just personal, it's actually shaping an entire market. So here's more on how young parents are transforming the kidswear industry. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more. With prices of just about everything from groceries to clothes skyrocketing, people have become more cautious about how they spend their money. But there's one market that's been booming despite the economic slowdown, the children's clothing industry. It comes on the heels of a new buzz phrase, very important baby, or VIB. Interestingly, this trend comes at a time when parents are spending more on the fewer children they have as the country continues to struggle with a chronically low birth rate. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at how young parents are reshaping the kidswear market, how their spending habits differ from previous generations, and the pros and cons of the VIB phenomenon. As we just saw in the video, being a parent these days seems to come with a lot more choices and a lot more spending as well. From premium strollers to designer kidswear, it's clear that parenting has become a whole new kind of lifestyle. And it's the parents themselves who are driving this shift. So parents these days are reshaping the entire kids market with their values, spending habits, and priorities. So how are they influencing the growth of the kidswear industry here in Korea, Seoul?
Well, these days, many families in Korea have only one child. Even having two is considered a big family, or it's called 다둥이 가족 in Korean, multi-children family. So we're seeing a clear trend, especially among millennials and Gen Z parents, to invest heavily in that one child. And they want to give their kids the best of everything, from education and experiences to fashion. And that's really fueling the growth of the kidswear market. If we take a look at the data on screen, according to market research from Euromonitor, while the overall fashion market has remained sluggish, Korea's children's wear market has been steadily expanding, and its market size jumped from about $1.31 billion in 2020 to $1.88 billion in 2024. That's a 38% increase in just 4 years. So yes, even though adults are spending less on themselves, spending on their kids continues to grow, because with the limited budget, you have to make a choice, right?
Right. So while 38% increase in just a few years, that's really remarkable, especially when you consider that the overall fashion market has been struggling. Many brands are facing slow growth. It really shows just how much parents are prioritizing their children, both in terms of time and money. So with this level of investment, it's no surprise that parents are starting to be recognized for certain spending habits and trends. And as we saw in our BCR earlier, one of the most talked about terms is very important baby, or VIB. So could you explain a little more what this term means, and are there any other buzzwords that have emerged alongside it, Grace?
Sure. New words like very important baby, or VIB, literally refers to how young parents these days are not sparing any amount of money when it comes to spending on their children. Aside from the VIB crowd, there's also another trending style of parenting called baby digging. Now, this word is used to describe parents that dig amidst the vast amount of information that we have on the baby product market right now, to find the best possible items for their child, doing tons and tons of research on the web, on social media, and on community boards.
I really love how creative these terms are, like VIB and baby digging. So it's amazing how parenting trends even come with their own vocabulary now. The fact that so many new buzzwords are emerging really shows how seriously parents take baby shopping these days. It's not just about buying what's needed, it's about finding what's best. And that makes me a bit curious. Taeyong, how have the kinds of baby products parents shop for changed over the years? Are we seeing new categories or priorities compared to the past?
Well, in the past, parenting expenses were mostly about essentials, things like diapers, formula, or hospital bills. But today, young parents spend much more on experiences and content. And parenting itself has become something to share and celebrate, from pregnancy announcements and gender reveal parties to first birthdays or 돌잔치 in Korean. Almost every moment turns into social media content. And I remember posting both of my pregnancy announcements, and when I was expecting my second child, I did a gender reveal post that received so many warm messages, because everyone knew how desperately I wanted a girl for the second child. And these posts, whether intentional or not, often promote a certain baby or family product. And many parents end up buying similar things. And in fact, a recent survey found that over half of parents in their 20s and 30s said social media posts from other parents influenced their purchases.
So that's so true. These days, parenting feels almost like a shared project on social media. So every little milestone, from a baby's first steps to their birthday parties, gets shared and celebrated online. And while that can be a beautiful way to connect and document memories, I imagine it can also create some pressure. So when parents are constantly seeing other families posting what seems to be picture-perfect moments or showcasing the latest baby products, some might feel the need to keep up, to provide certain things or experiences for their own children, even if it means stretching their budgets a little bit. And that also seems to be reflected in how products that parents are buying have changed compared to the past. So what kinds of products are today's parents buying, Grace?
Well, at one point, it seemed like everyone in town had the same baby item, the same stroller, the same toys, the same books, the same clothes, which actually kind of vouched for the quality of that specific product. But now we're seeing things change, where people are not necessarily buying the most popular item of the moment, but rather parents are choosing to reflect their own values of parenting into their spending patterns. Millennial and Gen Z parents are now looking for the 3 S's when it comes to shopping for baby products: smart, stylish, and safe. And more young people are looking for items that are unique to them and their children, and they have a greater desire to be like a hipster in that sense. Also, we're seeing parents place more value on buying items that will contribute to the good of society, like baby carriers that donate a specific percentage of their sales to charities, or baby sneakers that use less chemicals and less dyes, which mean less damage to the environment.
I mean, that also sounds kind of fun. It's not just about what's just practical, but what feels stylish and responsible at the same time. So parents today are clearly putting a lot of thought into the things they buy for their kids. So talking about spending habits makes me wonder, Seoul, what about you? What do you tend to spend the most on these days? Obviously, I'm sure most of them is dedicated to your kids.
Well, now that my son has turned 5, he started doing a few after-school activities, not because I'm one of those moms obsessed with early education, because he wants to do. And when his friends go to taekwondo or like art or piano classes, he wants to join too. So I try to let him try different things to see what he truly enjoys and is good at. And right now, he's taking a musical English class, some sports lessons, and a Kumon teacher who visits our house once a week, and recently started piano as well. And he loves them all, though honestly it's not cheap, so I have to work really hard. And since my husband and I both work, we also like to spend on short family trips from time to time, just to have quality time together. And I think it's really worth spending money on that.
Makes sense. What about you, Grace? What are you focused on?
Well, the only thing on my mind these days is just on baby products. I'm guessing that I'll be prioritizing my financial resources on my child's education and experiences, like Seyoung said. I've realized that there's like this whole market for baby items and also for child education. And since Korea does have a very extensive private education system for extracurricular activities, I'm sure I'll be spending lots of money on that in the future. And also, family vacations will look very different from when I took them before a child came into the picture. So yeah, that's another aspect that I'm both looking forward to but kind of nervous about at the same time.
So why do you think this trend has developed where parents are spending so much on their kids, though?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, families today tend to have fewer children, which makes them even more precious. And as a result, it's not just the parents, but also grandparents, aunts, and uncles who are eager to spend on that one child. So this entire family structure naturally fuels more spending on kids.
Yeah, you see a lot of grandparents getting directly involved in raising their kids. So it's
fascinating as well.
Exactly, so many people are involved. So it's fascinating how this shift from multiple children to one has transformed not only family spending, but even how society views parenting itself. It's quite interesting that an entire family is raising one VIB, pooling their love and resources together. So do you know of any other reasons why there is a focus on quality over quantity these days, Grace?
Well, another reason that I can think of is the fact that parents or couples are getting married later and they're having kids at an older age these days. In fact, the average childbearing age in Korea is 33, which signals that people are waiting until they're more financially stable or more settled into their careers before they choose to have kids. And because they have more financial resources than parents of a younger age, they are naturally able to splurge on more luxurious premium baby products as well as education and experiences.
Right. So coming up, we'll also continue to talk about this by chatting with a marketing professor about Korea's VIB trend. We'll find out if other countries are seeing the same patterns, what's driving parents to spend so much, and how families can make smart choices when buying baby products. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Dr. Jared Watson, Assistant Professor of Marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. So hi, Professor. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we've been hearing a lot about Korea's very important baby trend lately, with parents spending more on fewer children. Do we see similar trends happening in other countries such as the U.S. as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think basically across the developed world, we're seeing this trend through Europe, through America, anywhere where we're really seeing the quality of life improve over time. Fewer children, but with that comes the focus of nurturing and providing the best life we can for them.
All right. In your view as an expert professor, what do you think is driving this so-called VIB trend then?
Sure. I think there's a couple of key factors. The first of which is, as I mentioned, like our increase in quality of life, disposable income. As a result of that, we have more to pour into our children. But I think the real sort of driver of this behavior is social media, right, or sociocultural influences. So there's a concept in America called keeping up with the Joneses, where we look to our neighbors and we want to be equal or better than them. And so we see what our child's friend's birthday party looks like, and we want a better birthday party. We see the activity that our niece or nephew is engaged in, and we want to put them in more or better activities. And so this social comparison is really what seems to be fueling the VIB movement.
Thanks, Professor. With so many premium baby products on the market, what advice would you give to parents who want to spend wisely?
Sure. So when we think about why we're spending this, oftentimes what's happening with our children is we're kind of confusing whether we're doing it for them or whether we're doing it for ourselves to signal how good of a parent we are. And so I'd always caution parents just to pause for a second and ask themselves, does your child really care about this, right? We've all probably bought someone a gift, a child a gift, and we saw them had more fun with the box or the wrapping paper than the gift itself. And so this can apply towards anything. When we look at different car seats, like there's a level of protection that we certainly need, but then there are a lot of added amenities that our child probably doesn't care. Right. Same with outfits. We see children oftentimes have more fun creating their own outfits, right, than merely playing dress up with the ones that we buy from the store. And so there's opportunities for us to really say, are we doing this to signal something to our friends or our family or others on social media? Or do we think that this is what our child truly desires? And I think that'll help us make valuable purchase decisions over ones that we might regret later on.
I think that's really great advice. And as always, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us this morning.
Absolutely.
So we just talked to a marketing professor about Korea's VIB trend and whether parents in other countries are following similar patterns. It's really interesting to see how the way people spend on their children is evolving globally. And so far, we've explored how parents today are reshaping the kids market, the unique spending habits of parents these days compared to previous generations, and the factors driving this phenomenon. But of course, trends are one thing. What about individual families? So to get a sense of how parents are actually allocating their budgets, we turned to the Arirang News YouTube channel and asked our viewers, how much of your total household income do you spend on a preschool child? So let's see what they had to say here. So when it comes to household spending on a preschool child, the majority of parents allocate a relatively modest portion of their income. So about half of respondents, 50%, reported spending less than 10% of their total household income on their preschooler. Around 1/3, 33%, said they spend between 10 and 30%, while 8% of parents spend roughly half of their income, and 9% indicate that more than 50% of their household income goes towards their preschool age child. So half of the parents spending less than 10% shows that families are still relatively cautious about how much they dedicate to early childhood expenses. At the same time, it's clear that some parents are really going all in for their little ones. And speaking of this VIB trend, I'm curious, what do you personally think are the pros and cons of this approach to parenting and spending, Seoul, as a parent yourself?
Well, on the plus side, this VIB style parenting can give kids access to a lot of more educational and cultural experiences, things that broaden their horizons and help them explore what they truly enjoy. But I believe we need to ask ourselves honestly whether these choices are really for the child's growth or more for the parent's satisfaction and social image, like Professor Watson mentioned and during
the interview. I think that really matters. Yeah.
What would you say is your personal style when it comes to parenting? Do you tend to spend more on making sure to get that cultural experience?
If he wants, if that's really that's what my child wants, yeah, I'll try to provide that experience and chances for him.
I think that's a great answer. So, as well, to move on, what are your thoughts on this, Grace?
Yeah, and while these spending patterns can be thought of as being both for the parents and the child, I honestly think that it can also have societal consequences like broadening the gap between the rich and the poor, which then leads to decreasing birth rates due to greater financial burdens. And Korea is already actually suffering from a low birth rate as it is, and with inflation, higher housing prices, and living costs, adding a baby is an unthinkable option for many young couples. It's been said that the #1 reason in Korea for why people are not having kids is because of the cost of raising a child. And these changing trends can also bring about an unhealthy amount of expectation for the child, which is stressful for both the parents and the child eventually.
And I'm sure a lot of our viewers can relate to this. So while the very important baby trend shows how much care and attention parents are willing to give their children, it also highlights the challenges that come with it: financial pressures, stress, and the need to find a balance. And ultimately, parenting is about giving children love and support without overextending oneself, and finding that balance will be key as family dynamics and consumer trends continue to evolve. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Seoul.
Thank you.
Coming in, also Grace.
Thanks for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
Welcome to APEC.
여기 202호 차 좀 빼주세요. 202호.
Set the facts straight. Get Korea right. K-culture is sweeping the globe. K-pop, K-drama, K-movie,